Well, hello friends and welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about my mini skid steer. This is a Bobcat MT100. I've had it for about 3 months now and I've put 50 hours on, and I feel like I can confidently talk about how I like this machine and what I don't like about it as opposed to the tractor that I had before. So if you've been here before, I used to have a Kioti CK2610 tractor. I bought that tractor brand new in June of 2022 and I sold it in June of 2024. So I had it 2 years. I used it for various things, but mainly I used it for the loader. I had a grapple for it, forks, and a bucket, and I also had a bush hog for it. Now I didn't do any of my own bush hogging, like I don't have property to bush hog, but I did do bush hog jobs for it, so that's why I had a bush hog. So I decided to switch from the tractor to the mini skid for several reasons that I thought would be a good idea, and turns out a lot of them were a good idea. First thing that I really love about this Bobcat mini skid is it is small and compact. This thing is only 6 or 7 feet long as opposed to the tractor, which is much longer. This thing turns on a dime with the skid steer style tracks. You know, you can turn it really easily. For myself doing firewood, it is super easy to navigate through piles of wood or around piles of wood. Doing tree cleanup, this thing is incredible. You can drop a tree, you can go in and grab stuff, turn around. It's just compact and small. Also, one thing I like about it being compact and small, I have a Bobcat mini excavator as well, and this is super easy to haul on the same trailer as the Bobcat mini excavator because it's compact as well. Tractors take up so much room. If I'm gonna go get firewood or something, I can easily put this on the trailer. Doesn't take up a whole lot of space. Another thing that I really like about the mini skid steer is this one is only rated for 1,000 pounds, but what I quickly learned is compact construction equipment such as this, their lift capacities are kind of underrated for what they'll do, as opposed to tractors are kind of overrated for what they'll do. So my Kioti tractor was rated for 1,700 or 1,800 pounds lift capacity. This is only rated for 1,000, so I had reservations about would this be enough to replace the tractor, because ultimately I'm mainly using a loader with the tractor, so I need it to lift up stuff. And this thing will definitely lift up just as much as my tractor would. And honestly, whenever you're pushing the limits of this machine or pushing the limits of the tractor of what it'll lift, this is much easier, in my opinion, to navigate the limits because this has rigid mounted tracks, whereas the tractor has a floating axle in the front. So what would happen with the tractor is I would lift stuff up and it would teeter left or right. The back wheels would come off the ground. When this is pushed to the limits, it'll ride heavy on the front tracks. The back tracks may come up a little bit, but you can navigate it. Whereas with the tractor, you couldn't steer or anything whenever your back wheels aren't on the ground. Another thing that I absolutely love about this mini skid steer, it is so easy to get on and off of. When you're doing firewood or tree work, you're on and off of the machine a lot. You know, you got to move some stuff, cut some stuff, get back on, reposition, stuff like that. With my tractor, I would have to put it in neutral, set the parking brake, open the door, get up off the seat and get out, and then obviously do that to get moving again. This thing, you just step on, you know, go to work, step off. It is so easy, and for me, it's just the little things, the little time savers, the little quirks. That's what I love about a machine. If just the small things, they all do the same job. It's just dialing in on what does the job most efficiently and most pleasing to you. Another thing that I really like about the mini skid steer, and this goes back to compact construction equipment, the hydraulics on this thing are so fast compared to the tractor. This mini skid steer will multi-function with the loader, as in you can lift up and curl at the same time, or you can pressure down and pressure out at the same time. It is so fast compared to the tractor, and it's not a huge deal. It's just another one of those, it's just pleasing to use. Also, the flow on the third function on this mini skid steer is like probably 4 times as fast as the tractor. I think my Kioti, there's no real spec on it, but there was somebody that I watched that they measured the flow on their third function, and it was like 2 gallons a minute, and this one is 12 gallons a minute, so much faster. If you have a third function attachment you want to run on the front, this thing is just way faster than a tractor. Another thing that I really love about the mini skid steer, and this is specifically Bobcat, is it has a quick attach plate. It is narrower than a full size, but it fits all of the same attachments that a full size skid steer would fit. So if I need to rent any attachments for the front, such as a trencher, a post hole auger, a power rake, anything like that, Yeah, I probably can't run the giant ones because the machine is limited to that, but I could definitely run a full-size post-hole auger, or I could run a smaller power rake or a smaller brush cutter, and it would fit on here right easy. It's not like I have to have a special plate or a special attachment, because around here, quick tack stuff is really common and a lot of people have it. So a lot of my friends have it. So if I need to borrow an attachment or something, it's easy to get a hold of. It's kind of like having a 3-point on a tractor. If you need to borrow a 3-point attachment, most likely somebody you know has the attachment you need, and you can trade something off and borrow it. Another thing that I really like about this mini skid steer is everything is just so simple on it. There is electronics to an extent, but it has a mechanical engine. All the hydraulics are mechanical. The third function is just a mechanical lever, and I'll show you that. But it's just simple. It's just got a Kubota 3-cylinder diesel. In my opinion, that engine is something that if you take care of it, change oil on it, probably not going to have any problems. So these are the controls on it. This is just like an ISO version of a skid steer. You run the loader and stuff on this side. You drive with this one. This is the third function. Now, if I could change anything on this one in particular, I wouldn't mind having the third function like on a button on the handle, but I also understand why they just have it on a valve. Less solenoids, electronics, whatever. And really, it's not that hard to actuate them, but at the same time, when you're running it, you know, you just slide your thumb over. It's pretty easy. Just a simple throttle here, no electronics, key, basic gauges. This thing is simple, but effective. Now, there is a few things that I don't like about this compared to a tractor, and the first thing that I will start with is if you're always running it on gravel and you want to keep your gravel nice, this does tear up the gravel. It's not tires, it skids. It does tear up the gravel a little bit. It's not a huge deal. Whenever I'm done working and I know I'm not going to be in the gravel for a couple days, and I'll take the bucket and just back drag it. It's not that big of a deal. The only other thing that I don't like about this, and it's because I don't have one yet, is when I had my tractor, I had a bush hog. So whenever I would have to do a job and I wanted to bush hog it before, or if I did have a bush hogging job, I could easily just bush hog with my tractor. I don't have a bush hog for this yet. I would like to get one. Express Steel sells a nice brush cutter for the front, and I think that would be really great. I know if you have trails to mow, I think a bush hog on the front of one of these is much better than a tractor, and I only say that because this is so compact. So if you're in the woods mowing, you don't have that big bush hog off the back. You don't have to steer with the front. You can bush hog before you drive over something. So I know with my tractor, there are several times I was bush hogging trails, new trails, and I would run over something and the whole belly of the tractor is exposed. I remember I dented one of my hydraulic filters one time. So I think this with a bush hog or a full-size skid steer with a bush hog is probably better to cut new trails in than a tractor. Also, you can raise the cutter up and kind of ease into what you're doing, whereas the tractor, you can only raise it up so much. You can't really tilt it like you could if you had this. Other than that, I really don't have any gripes with this. For what I use the tractor for and what I use this for, this definitely fits me better. Like I said before, I do firewood stuff, I do tree cleanup stuff, I move stuff with pallet forks, I do a little bit of dirt spreading and stuff, gravel. This definitely fits me better than the tractor. But the tractor was great. I don't regret buying it. I'm glad I got that experience, but this is definitely where I'm going in the future. Now, specific to this mini skid steer, this Bobcat MT100, I don't have any complaints with this machine. It's got 550 hours. I haven't had any problems with it. The previous owner, I don't know that they had any problems with it. But I haven't really ran other mini skid steers. When we were at the Paul Bunyan show, I did stand on a lot of them to see what I thought about them. I know whenever I went to buy a mini skid steer, Bobcat was the only brand I was going to buy because I have a dealer 15 minutes away. They're really good. I have a Bobcat mini excavator. I kind of like to have matching equipment to some extent. So, but after standing on a lot of the other mini skid steers, I definitely am glad I have the Bobcat, and I'll tell you why. So specific to the Bobcat, some of the other mini skid steers I stood on, either their platform here, it was really deep, as in the sides came out and I felt like really claustrophobic in there, or they didn't really have sides. And this, I feel like, is perfect sides, because these mini skid steers, they move around, they jostle you, and you want some sort of sides, because as you're on the machine, it's moving around, you're moving around, you're holding on. So you definitely want some sort of sides. The Vermeers, I really like the Vermeers. If I didn't get a Bobcat, I'd probably have a Vermeer. The Vermeer sides stick out a little bit more. They're a little deeper. good, but just a little claustrophobic in my opinion. Another thing that I really like specific to the Bobcat as well is the platform height. Some of the other ones that I stepped on, they were a lot higher, which is cool. They give you more ground clearance, but it is kind of a step up to get on it. Whereas this one I feel like is like perfect height that just steps up. It's not too low, but it's not too high. Some of the other ones, like I said, were really high. Another thing that I really like about the Bobcat too is some of the other newer mini skid steers. This control setup is 20 something years old. Bobcat started these MT loaders, or this design I should say, probably 15 or 20 years ago, and it's pretty much unchanged. And some people will say that this control pattern is just outdated, Bobcat should update it, but I think it works really well. Some of the newer mini skid steers, they have big joysticks on them, and it looks cool. It looks better than this, but honestly, I think this is perfect. You want a shorter handle, and you want nice handles around it. Like I said, so the way you operate this, as you're bumping around, moving around, these handles, you rest your hands on the handles, and then you kind of run the controls with your thumbs and your index finger. So with the big stick that holds up, if I was holding joysticks right here, that's how it was, and I didn't, like they're high, I don't have any way to really brace myself. Or if I'm really connected to the sticks, I would be so rough with this machine, as in it would be so jerky. Like with the way I run it now, I'm bracing myself here and I'm just running it with my finger. So as I'm jostling around, as the machine is moving around, I'm extremely planted, because this thing, it's not like you're sitting down. It is short, it does tip. You definitely don't want to be like tied to the controls like this. If I ran it like this and I was cleaning up trees or something, this thing would be a wreck. And like I was saying before, with this third function here, as I'm running this, it's not a big deal to pop over here, or if I'm in the pile and I'm done driving, then I'll close it here, but it's not a big deal. It's a little inconvenient, but not too bad at all. So yeah, if you were looking for a mini skid steer, I would run one, figure out how you like it, but just because it has big cool joysticks, that is definitely not what I would want at all. And by looking at these two, I think you can shorten them or raise them, because they unbolt, so I could probably unbolt it, take some length out of this, screw them down more, and make them even shorter. But I think they're like perfect for me as they sit. As I was saying, this protects you good, and then there's a cutout right in the center, so you have some give to it. But yeah, you definitely don't want one that's just flat on the back, because there has definitely been times where I've had the grapple on this and I've been moving big logs and one has fallen, or the load has shifted and the machine has moved or side to side. I've fallen off of it a time or two, so I could not imagine what it would be like to run one that doesn't have any guarding in the back or any padding, you know, or anything to hold on to. So that's that. But like I said, padding, not too deep, a cutout in the middle so you have some cushion when you go forward. These things are easy to open up here. The battery is easy to get to. Hydraulic fluid and level, hydraulic filter. It's all pretty standard stuff. Lots of tie down points on the machine. The tracks, they're not too bad to change. I will say, because nobody else on YouTube has done this, and we didn't do a track video because I just wanted to watch other people do it and learn from them, but ultimately I didn't learn from them. So if you have one of these machines and you want to change the tracks, everything I've always watched on YouTube is people run this is the idler that tightens the tracks. People just run that all the way in, and then they will take off one of those idlers in the front so the track will suck up more and it's easier to put on. We tried that when we put these tracks on. That does not work very well at all. The best thing to do if you're going to change tracks on a Bobcat with this undercarriage is take this roller out right there, and then you can suck that idler back in an extra 3 or 4 inches. Track will go right on. We fought the other side track when we put it on for probably 2 hours, could hardly get it on. This side, when we changed the track, we pulled that idler. There's a bolt head on one side, a nut on the other. Takes a minute to pull. We pulled that idler, ran the tensioner in, and this track took about 5 minutes to change, and it was easy. So that will do it for this one. Ultimately, I think if you're doing firewood, you have a smaller property like mine, mini skid steer is tough to beat. They're easy to use. They're way more capable than I think people give them credit for. I know every time I've been out and I've done a job with this, whether it was tree work or I did a dirt job with it, I'll show up and people will be like, I can tell they're thinking that's what you're going to use, and then I use it and they're like, holy crap, that's actually pretty impressive that that small machine is capable of doing this work. So it definitely is well beyond its size as far as capabilities. And mini skid steer is not for everybody. I would say if you had a large property and you were doing a lot of mowing, maybe you did hay or something too, then a tractor probably is better suited to you. But if you're like me, you have a small property, you do firewood and other odd jobs, maybe this is better suited to you. So that'll be it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.